Chapter 3: Democracy and Diversity. A story from Mexico Olympics. The picture here depicts an important landmark in the history of the civil rights movement in the United States. The civil rights movement in the USA 1954 to 1968 refers to a set of events and reform movements aimed at abolishing legal racial discrimination against African Americans. Led by Martin Luther King Jr., this movement practiced non-violent methods of civil disobedience against racially discriminatory laws and practices. These represent the medal ceremony of the 200 meters race in the 1968 Olympics held at Mexico City. The two men standing with clenched fists upraised and heads bowed while the American national anthem was played are the U.S. athletes Tommie Smith and John Carlos. They are African Americans. African American. African American or Afro-American, Black American or Black are the terms used to refer mainly to the descendants of the Africans who were brought into America as slaves between the 17th century and early 19th century. They had won the gold and bronze medals respectively. They received their medals wearing black socks and no shoes to represent black poverty. With this gesture, they tried to draw international attention to racial discrimination in the United States. The black gloved and raised clenched fists were meant to symbolize black power. The Black Power. The Black Power movement emerged in 1966 and lasted till 1975, which was a more militant anti-racist movement advocating even violence if necessary to end racism in the US. The silver medalist, white Australian athlete Peter Norman wore a human rights badge on his shirt during the ceremony to show his support to the two Americans. Do you think that Carlos and Smith should have raised an internal matter of American society in an international forum? Would you say that what they did was political? Why do you think Peter Norman, who was neither black nor American, joined in the gesture of protest? If you were in Norman's place, what would you do?
अगर आप अपने सिलेबस के सारे चैप्टर्स इस फॉर्मेट में देखना चाहते हैं तो हमें डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए नंबर पर कॉल करें।
The International Olympic Association held Carlos and Smith guilty of violating the Olympic spirit by making a political statement. Their medals were taken back. Back home, they were subjected to a lot of criticism. Norman too suffered for his action and was not included in the Australian team for the next Olympic. But their actions succeeded in gaining international attention for the civil rights movement in the US. Recently, the San Jose State University, of which they were former students, honored them and installed their statue in the university campus. When Norman died in 2006, Smith and Carlos were pallbearers at his funeral. Differences, similarities, divisions. The athletes in the example above were responding to social divisions and social inequalities. But does that happen only in societies which have racial divisions? In the previous two chapters, we have already noted some other forms of social divisions. The examples of Belgium and Sri Lanka show both regional and social divisions. In the case of Belgium, we noted that people who live in different regions speak different languages. In Sri Lanka, we noted linguistic as well as religious differences. Thus, social diversity can take different forms in different societies. Origins of social differences. These social differences are mostly based on accident of birth. Normally, we don't choose to belong to our community. We belong to it simply because we were born into it. We all experience social differences based on accident of birth in our everyday lives. People around us are male or female. They are tall and short, have different kinds of complexions, or have different physical abilities or disabilities. But all kinds of social differences are not based on accident of birth. Some of the differences are based on our choices. For example, some people are atheists. They don't believe in God or any religion. Some people choose to follow a religion other than the one in which they were born. Most of us choose what to study, which occupation to take up, and which games or cultural activities to take part in. All these lead to formation of social groups that are based on our choices.
अगर आप अपने सिलेबस के सारे चैप्टर्स इस फॉर्मेट में देखना चाहते हैं तो हमें डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए नंबर पर कॉल करें।
Social difference and social division. Every social difference does not lead to social division. Social differences divide similar people from one another. But they also unite very different people. People belonging to different social groups share differences and similarities cutting across the boundaries of their groups. In the instance above, Carlos and Smith were similar in one way. Both were African-American and thus different from Norman, who was white. But they were also all similar in another way. That is, they were all athletes who stood against racial discrimination. It is fairly common for people belonging to the same religion to feel that they do not belong to the same community because their caste or sect is very different. It is also possible for people from different religions to have the same caste and feel close to each other. Rich and poor persons from the same family often do not keep close relations with each other, for they feel they are very different. Thus, we all have more than one identity and can belong to more than one social group. We have different identities in different contexts.
अगर आप अपने सिलेबस के सारे चैप्टर्स इस फॉर्मेट में देखना चाहते हैं तो हमें डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए नंबर पर कॉल करें। ऐसे ही और एजुकेशनल वीडियोस देखने के लिए हमारे चैनल होम रिवाइज को सब्सक्राइब करें।